Hi, welcome to 0xTalks by OKC podcast. And here we talk about DeFi, GameFi, Metaverse, crypto, and everything else related to them. This is your host, James. In today's our conversation with Michael O'Rourke, we're going to have a very good discussion about Pocket Network and the whole crypto space and about decentralization of Web3. So Michael O'Rourke is the co-founder and CEO of Pocket Network. And Pocket Network is an infrastructure middleware protocol that facilitates decentralized multi-chain blockchain. It is for developers of Web3 applications, including Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, Solana, Fuse, Harmony, Phantom, and OKC networks. So, hi, Michael. It's an honor to have you here in our podcast.
Great. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, me too. And well, first of all, I would like to congratulate you and the whole Pocket Network team for tallying nearly 22 billion relays for the month of April. That's a really huge success. So how did you guys achieve that? So what did you guys do differently compared to, let's say, March or February?
Thank you. Yeah, very excited. We're actually today, we're about 3 million requests until a billion in the last 24 hours. So if we can keep over that billion daily mark, we may hit 30 billion over the course of a month, maybe in June. But yeah, in terms of our growth, we really hit an inflection point last summer, around July. We were doing around 5 million requests a day. And there's a couple things that we did to really start to kind of spark this growth and the kind of inflection point that we saw, because in about the last 10 months, we've gone from about 5 million a day to almost a billion a day, which is really exciting for us. And there's a couple things here that really contributed to this. The first being Pocket got to a threshold of quality of service after. So Pocket, we launched it about 22 months ago. And there's a couple of things that we really worked on those first 12 months. And that was really on the protocol side, on the consensus side, and also on the quality of service side of things. So that's consistency of data and latency of data. That's kind of the two key metrics there. And last summer, we hit a threshold that was fast enough for many applications. We dropped below about 500 milliseconds per request. I'd say we were around 400 to 500 milliseconds. And that's kind of how things started really picking up for us on one side. And on the other side of things, we also made an explicit attempt to really add as many blockchains as possible through Pocket, because early last year, we were having lots of conversations with protocols, and they were like, hey, we have infrastructure problems. We need you now. And we'd be like, yeah, we'll support you in something like 2 to 4 weeks. So a key learning from something like that was really the benefits of that. We've really started to see the benefits of that. So I'd say those two things, really being aggressive about adding new blockchains and kind of the latency itself and the quality of service really kind of started to lead to this recent growth. And actually, we hit a really incredible milestone earlier this year where we actually reached parity with centralized services in terms of the latency of the requests themselves. And that's due in large part due to the growth of nodes across the network. We now have over 45,000 nodes across maybe 25 to 30 countries in the world. And what's really important about that is that as an end user, let's say I'm in, Germany, it's very likely that I hit the gateway that's in Frankfurt, for example. And what really causes latency is really the speed of light. So the closer you are to the node that's serving you the information, the faster the request will be. And since we have a really nice distribution of nodes across the world, we've actually been able to massively decrease the latency for the end user using Web3, which I think has also contributed to this growth. So we hit something really special with Harmony late last year. They went through an explosion and we were supporting them. And we were able to really kind of help them through their own explosive growth. And then this year, we've seen some great growth with Polygon, with Gnosis Chain, and also other apps like DeFi Kingdoms, who launched their subnet, and we're actually looking to launch several other subnets this year as well. So I'd say, this is kind of the long way of saying it's really been improving the quality of service and being quite aggressive about adding new blockchains, particularly in this world where we see, all these parachains, all these Cosmos chains, subnets. Soon we'll see Eth2 shards. Soon we'll see Celestia rollups, and even near shards coming into the future as well. And Pocket really wants to be there to support everything and everyone.
Awesome. Well, you're saying it right. I mean, in terms of quality, if you are actually providing a high quality service, and if you're very aggressive with adding new blockchains, adding new chains to your infrastructure and helping them to grow, will absolutely help you as well to grow and to achieve a success. And of course, you have also integrated the Phantom in April, and you have also integrated OKC back in February. So let's talk more about the benefits that these chains that integrate onto Pocket Network get, and then we'll probably move on to talk more about the benefits of those for the end users.
Yeah, absolutely. So at a high level, chains shouldn't have to worry about running their own RPC. So there's just kind of a baseline need for reliable RPC provisioning for the end users of the applications built on these chains. And very much how we kind of specialize in, for example, a traditional Web2 startup, right? They're focused on the actual application, right? And they defer the infrastructure to something like Amazon Web Services, or the payment infrastructure to things like Stripe and these sorts of things. I think blockchains, especially new blockchains, are going to continue to be doing something similar, where they kind of offload kind of external components to different parties, whether centralized or not. And Pocket really plays a key role in that aspect by completely removing the need for a new chain to ever have to worry about kind of having a reliable RPC service, right? Now, more talking about kind of more granular why people are using Pocket, I'd say the number one reason why is really due to the reliability aspect of Pocket. So there's a couple issues there. One, and one single application is actually querying hundreds or thousands of Pocket nodes at once when they're using the network. And what that means is, because we have so many nodes, we're across dozens of different setups, whether on the cloud or bare metal, or even people running nodes in their own homes. This provides a real, true layer of resiliency and redundancy that isn't really seen very often in, let's say, comparables around our size, as an example. So, if AWS East goes out, well, there's definitely many other nodes not running in AWS East that are nearby that will be able to provide you service. So that's one side of things when it comes to the kind of redundancy and reliability of the network itself. And the other piece there that's really important are things like syncing. So full nodes are traditionally very finicky. They go out of sync, in times of high gas fees. That's lots of data. Sometimes nodes go out of sync quite easily if they're big blocks and this sort of thing. And Pocket, due to the nature, of course, as you're querying hundreds or thousands of nodes at once, you're also guaranteed to have the latest nodes that are synced up in the network. So we do certain things like sync checks, where if I'm querying 1,000 nodes and 50 are not responding the same as the other 950 nodes, well, then I won't query those 50 nodes until they come back in sync, as an example, right? Let's say we're checking the block height or something like that, as an example. So I'd say those are the two primary reasons that people are using us today when it comes to the reliability side of things. There's also the cost side of things. So as an app developer, or even a blockchain provider, or someone who's building a blockchain, you still have to pay for infrastructure, whether it's you running it yourself or using a third-party service. And what we generally take as a rule of thumb is about 10 months of what your monthly fees are as a one-time stake within Pocket. And that's really impactful because what usually becomes, what usually is a CapEx, a monthly cost in the network, a capital expenditure, it turns it into an asset. And today, Pocket as an application doesn't get burned. So what that means is the longer you use the service, the closer your cost basis reaches zero. So it's actually significantly cheaper for applications and blockchains to use us as well over the long run, which is really enabled by the kind of crypto native solution and Web3 native solution that Pocket Network is today.
So what you're saying is that if chain wants to have your infrastructure and if they want to be in Pocket Network and try to receive all the benefits that you have just mentioned, there is also the cost effectiveness where it is really cheap for them, first of all, to make sure that their chain is working as properly and as reliably as possible. And it's at the same time, with the number of nodes that you guys provide, they don't even have to worry about the uptime, and they don't even have to worry about maybe network congestion.
Exactly right. Even if the Pocket blockchain were to halt, we actually have what we call an altruist system where the node runners can actually contribute their nodes to the gateways themselves outside of the protocol itself, which actually guarantees the uptime of the end user as well, because of course nodes want to continue providing the service if something like that happened, were to happen to the blockchain, and so it's effectively unstoppable infrastructure, which is really exciting for us, given kind of where Pocket sits in the stack of Web3.
That's really interesting. At the same time, this is, I think, the definition of decentralization, where even if the network provider, the service provider goes offline, there is a chance for the chain that's using the infrastructure to be able to carry on without a certain impact. And that's, I think, the whole nature of decentralization, where you don't have to worry about, in Web 2, for instance, if you are using Amazon services and if Amazon goes offline for a certain period of time, then that means your website is also offline as well. However, with Pocket Network, that's different. So even if you guys are not operating for a certain amount of time, the chains that are using your infrastructure, your services, they will not be impacted by that. And how does having Pocket Network as a service provider help the users of those chains?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the end users are the ones who are really requesting that data, right? So it's not actually the dApp itself, but it's the users of those dApps that are using Web3, right? So it's really important because Pocket is a global protocol at this point, and the end user will be guaranteed kind of this reliable infrastructure regardless of where I am in the world, right? I think we're further at risk of, let's say, state level censorship, right? I think it's getting increasingly difficult to censor, things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I think we'll start to see, things go up the stack. So it's why, Pocket, I see us in a part of really critical middleware Web3 stack, where you have things like storage, where Arweave and Filecoin. You got privacy solutions, you've got VPN solutions, you've got DNS solutions. You've got identity solutions. I think all of these are really critical parts of the Web3 stack that we're really starting to see mature. And I think the end user in the end will have a truly kind of decentralized internet stack that they can access through. And that's really what's really exciting for us over the long run.
Oh, great. Now let's talk about nodes for a little bit. Well, if a person who wants to be a node and who wants to run nodes, and if that person is experienced, of course, I don't think there will be a problem for them to join the Pocket Network and run the nodes there. However, for the newcomers, or let's say for the beginners who want to become node runners, they are They're often lost due to the massive amount of information available on the internet. Well, of course, there is a chance for them to use a third-party node hosting services, and that helps them to run nodes. However, what if, let's say, they are determined to learn to become node runners by themselves? How do they go about it? Is there any help from Pocket where it can you guys can lead the newcomers to become better node runners?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a couple options. So first, our documentation, I think, is pretty good in terms of learning how to spin up the infrastructure yourself. But what's really exciting for us is different tooling that's being released either by us or community members that's making it easier for people to monitor or launch nodes, whether it's 1 or 50. Right. So I think one really cool project to highlight is one called Node Pilot, which is a really nice kind of graphical user interface that you can download and sync up your nodes with alongside your Pocket nodes, which is very exciting for us. Now, it's still early, but I think that's a step in the right direction when it comes to making it easier for anyone to be able to run nodes. I think just having that UX experience is just so critical. And for example, on the monitoring side, we just recently launched or working on launching something called Node Nanny. We just recently announced it. And this is great for monitoring your nodes at scale, right? So what we've seen is as we've added new blockchains, the tooling and things that end node runners can run tends to lag kind of our speed at adding new blockchains, but it tends to catch up over some time where it might be hard for me to run one node with with OK, for example, or with Ethereum. But over time, it's going to get easier to run, five different blockchains and 10 different blockchains and maybe 20 different Pocket nodes and eventually 30 or 40 or 50 different blockchain nodes or Pocket nodes. So over time, that tooling is going to continue to get to improve. What's interesting is that we are incentivized to level up the quality of the network as a whole. So that means sharing the things that we build as opposed to keeping them private, which kind of flips the traditional model upside down.
Being open source is actually good for the companies or for anyone that's in Web3, because being open source, that means that you are showing the community that there is this is everything that I have, and you're putting it on the table. And that means that the community can also help you in one way or another to make it better, to make it work. And the importance of community here comes that not only do they help you to run your services better, but they also come up with new initiatives. For instance, you're talking about Node Pilot. So if this is initiated by your community, that means that your community wants to improve your services and they want to help in any way that's possible for them.
Yeah, exactly. And the challenge is that if you're kind of a traditional infrastructure company, you're kind of reinventing the wheel, for each new company, right? Each new company has to kind of reinvent the wheel because it's all closed source, right? In our case, every new entrant over the course of time finds better and better tooling and resources to run nodes. So kind of by being open source, it actually levels up the entire protocol in aggregate, which over time, I think compounds things across the board, which is very, very exciting for us.
That's awesome. Now, let's talk a little bit about your community. Well, before that, let's talk a little bit about the Pocket Foundation that you guys have and the Pocket DAO, which essentially includes the community of the Pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the DAO itself. Pocket doesn't have kind of like a traditional governance system that you would see in many types of protocols and chains. Pocket doesn't have token weighted voting. The way I like to describe it is an opt-in democracy. So you basically prove your knowledge of Pocket Network through a game, and we call it the Pocket Arcade. And once you get to level 3, and you can actually do this through kind of just your normal time of running a Pocket node, you'll actually likely qualify for most of the quests in the Pocket Arcade. And after some time, you can submit those quests and submit validation of those quests. And eventually, once you get to level 3, you can claim a vote in the Pocket DAO. And the reason why we have the arcade is actually really important. It's for an anti-Sybil mechanism. So the arcade is hard enough for that, so that someone can't take a bot and kind of automate anything related to kind of completing the quests. But it's not so hard that you have to be complete DevOps master, for example, to claim a vote, right? So I think we've struck a really nice middle ground in terms of difficulty, allowing people to kind of claim their votes. And I believe we're over 20 voters now in the network, in the DAO itself, when we started out with 5. So over these months, people have effectively claimed their votes by playing the Pocket Arcade and contributing to the network, which has been really, really exciting for us to see. And what the DAO does is govern 3 things within the network. They govern the DAO treasury, which takes 10% of all rewards that get created by the network. They also manage the network's monetary policy. So Pocket is extremely configurable with lots of different parameters that can be changed when it's related to economics or other parameters, even unrelated to economics. So the DAO also governs those parameters. And thirdly, the DAO governs protocol upgrades. So we put in proposals for protocol upgrades and these sorts of things. So the DAO really governs those things. And now we have in the low 20s of voters that really have shown, really have done quite a nice showing in terms of certain types of proposals that get brought in by the network and its participants. So that's kind of an overview of the Pocket DAO. And in terms of the foundation, it's really quite interesting because we view Pocket as kind of a supranational entity. It's not a business, it's not a company, it's not a country either, or a city, but it's also similar to these things. You could even say blockchains are similar to religions in some cases too, if you follow crypto Twitter. But blockchains are kind of a mix of all 3 of these things. And it was important for us, for the Pocket DAO, not to be tied down to a specific jurisdiction. But yet it's really important for the DAO to have an interface for the real world, because the world doesn't yet really know how to interact with DAOs on a regular basis. So that was a big reason behind the foundation. It was important for us to put the kind of IP of the network in a nonprofit, and also have the proper checks and balances for entrusting the foundation directors to make decisions on behalf of the network. So what I mean by that is actually we picked the Cayman Islands for the headquarters of the foundation, specifically because they had the flexibility to allow the DAO to actually control the hiring and firing of the directors and the supervisors of the foundation. So in fact, if you go on our GitHub, you'll see that the DAO in the kind of formation articles of formation for the foundation, the DAO can actually hire and fire its directors, which is really cool for us because it provides this nice kind of checks and balance whilst not constricting the DAO itself to a physical jurisdiction, while still allowing the DAO to interact with the real world, right? As an example. So we're throwing, a conference fairly soon, and a lot of that is done through the foundation, right? Because, having a contractor for food interact with the Pocket DAO, I don't think we're quite there yet, right? So it's important for them to be able to interact with kind of a real entity as well.
So I understand that the Pocket DAO, it has a huge say in how the Pocket network operates. And you're talking about opt-in democracy, which is actually sounds really interesting and unique in its own ways, because if you're talking about if a person that holds a certain amount of your tokens, then if they get the vote, then that means the higher the amount of the tokens that you have, you will get more votes. That means you can actually you'll become not really democratic, where only the ones that hold the highest amount of tokens can have the final say. However, with the opt-in democracy that you're explaining with Arcade and achieving to level 3, claiming your votes, this is really unique and something very, very interesting. I think that other companies in Web3 should try to think in a different way on how to control the votes, or how to give out the votes to the participants of their DAO. And well, you're talking about the benefits of being a voter, where they get to vote on the treasury, on the monetary policies and upgrades. You're talking about that. So I wanted to ask you, one thing that you mentioned was that DAO can actually hire or fire the board of directors of Pocket Network. Can you elaborate more on that? Like, how does that really work?
Yeah, so it's defined in the legal contract of the actual foundation itself, right? So we've seen lots of situations in the past where you've had protocols kind of or you've had organizations hold funds or protocols hostage across the board. And, I think it's important for a certain amount of delegation and just for speed purposes to, be able to make decisions and this sort of thing. But this allows the protocol to keep, the foundation accountable to itself, right? Which is kind of what I talked about, checks and balances in that respect. So it really forces, and it's just designed in the system so that, over the long run, while of course, we're a part of it, or at least, Pocket Network is a part of it. It's important for, I think, for lasting purposes, for sustainability purposes. It's important for, an entity like the foundation to be kept accountable to the protocol itself and its voters. So that's why that exists.
Understood. Right. And I was checking your Twitter actually, and there's this Triforce thing that you guys talked about on your Twitter announcements. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we are so excited about Triforce. This is really important, kind of related to what I mentioned about Pocket, and really just blockchains in general being a mix of religions, countries, and companies at once. And this is really allowing, building the bridges to allow any participant in the network to become effectively a first-class citizen, right? Within the Pocket network itself, regardless of how much how much Pocket you hold. It's really decided on how you're contributing to the network. And for us, the most important thing today is, as I was mentioning earlier, is scaling to as many chains as possible. So we kind of have this idea where, a group of individuals can team up together in, let's say, this autonomous working group and spin up a new chain and actually get rewarded in Pocket from the DAO treasury itself, based on the amount of requests that you're driving to the network for that new chain. All right. And the idea here is that, this is in effect the same as a full-time job, right? This is not meant to be something that is just kind of, $500 here, $200 there. Our hope is and goal is that this really, allows people to really work full-time in Web3 while still kind of pushing forward kind of the goals of Pocket Network as a whole. So, I don't see, I would consider kind of our core team, which is around 50 people today. I don't want to see us grow much more than this. I think we'd probably be doing something wrong if we do, just because it's really important for kind of us to lay the groundwork for opportunity for others to kind of participate in the network and really contribute meaningfully in this respect. So that's kind of how we think about it. And this is kind of goes towards, the countryside of Pocket, where anyone has the same opportunity. You're kind of choosing to be, let's say, a citizen of the Pocket network, whether through the DAO or participating in Triforce. And that, hopefully provides lots of opportunity for you to participate.
Got it. So essentially what you're trying to say here is that if, for instance, I want to join the Triforce, that means I'll become more like a full-time citizen of Pocket country or Pocket island, let's say. And through that way, I didn't really get the incentive of joining the Triforce. So for instance, I'm joining the Triforce and I'm getting a new chain and I'm trying to get more relays to that. But how do you guys calculate that, and how do you guys pay essentially to that person
Yeah, so
who's joining the Triforce?
absolutely. So let's say I spin up a new chain, and there's 100 million requests going through that chain. That was kind of spearheaded by me and my Triforce shard, right? That creates, if I'm driving 100 million requests a day, that's going to drive 10% of that of those rewards to the Pocket DAO itself. And what we're proposing is to divert a portion of those rewards to Triforce participants. It's directly related to the amount of traffic that drive through an individual chain itself, right? So that's kind of how we anticipate kind of scaling ourselves to allow for, in an ideal world, we have autonomous Triforce shards spinning up to support all these, Celestia rollups or subnets or ETH2 shards or whatever it might be, through these incentives of driving that traffic to the network.
Got it. Understood. Now you guys are creating a lot more than just the infrastructure to chains. You're creating a lot more, and you're adding so much stuff to Web3 that it makes me wonder, what does the future hold for Pocket Network?
Yeah, good question. Pocket can support really any openly accessible database. So in kind of the medium term, I could see us supporting maybe various indexing solutions. And more long term, hopefully next year, we'll be launching Pocket 1.0, which is a really big deal for us. It's the next evolution of Pocket, and really what's going to allow us to scale to, eventually trillions of relays. But what I really view Pocket as being is really a foundational part of this kind of infrastructure middleware stack of technologies that developers will be able to kind of take off the shelf and implement in their own Web3 applications. So I definitely see a future, where we might have, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of daily active users or monthly active users across crypto. I think we'll be going into the billions quite soon. And I view Pocket as a key piece of kind of providing those kind of, let's say, on-ramps for those users to really be using a fully censorship-resistant and trustless system, which is very exciting for us.
That sounds really exciting. Yeah, actually, the future, of course, you cannot really see the future of crypto as, like, from the past experience, that it's really volatile and you cannot really say what's going to happen even tomorrow or after a week or so. But for instance, let's talk about the current crypto situation. Everything is bleeding, and this is hugely affecting the newcomers to Web3, whether they want to create a new dApp or whether they want to show a new type of a service in Web3. What's your thought on that? What's your thought on the bear market, let's say, in crypto, and how the market becomes silent?
Yeah, I think this is the best time to launch anything as someone who's building in the space. It's quieter. It forces you to focus on what matters, which is kind of the core use case of your protocol. There's less distractions. Again, it just forces you to do this. I've been in Bitcoin since 2013, and this is now effectively my third kind of downturn that we're working through. And for us, we incorporated Pocket in kind of Q3 of 2017, spent those 3 years really building things, and frankly, it forces you to focus on what matters. So for me, these are really the best times to be building, in my opinion. I don't think it actually slows down kind of developer interest meaningfully. If anything, it's growing. There's a great report from Electric Capital that kind of highlights this kind of almost exponential growth in new developers coming into the space. And I just think that there's just so much clear opportunity in terms of innovation across so many different parts of the stack that people will continue to come and try to build interesting things. So for me, it's just absolutely the best time to actually come in and actually launch something, because the people who are using your apps are the ones that are here for the long term. Not to say that doesn't happen in a bull market either, but nonetheless, it's really nice to actually have kind of this initial foundation and baseline of users during this time, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're saying it right. You will have less distractions and you can really focus on what matters, and you can really see what needs to be done in order to make it better in the Web3 and in order to make your mark in the Web3 space. If you are building in the bull market, there's so many things that are trending, and as a developer, probably you'll get distracted because one day you're thinking this will work, and the next day you see that there's another trend that's going on, and you're like, hey, maybe this does not work. And maybe the bear market is the best time for developers to come up with new initiatives, to come up with new apps. And then once the bull market comes, with the people that you have already attracted, there will be a higher trend, and that will make your, let's say, product, that will make your platform to actually explode in the space. Michael, this was a really, really nice discussion with you today, and I really thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and it's been a pleasure. And I wish Pocket Network a huge success in the future, and I wish you a huge success, and I hope that we will talk again.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you, James, for the questions. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
To learn more about Pocket Network, check out the show notes of this episode. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. Peace.